One time, me and Jenny went to visit her family in Utah. We're hanging out at the house she grew up in, and she's looking through boxes filled with some of her childhood stuff. I'm sitting on a couch trying to act as white as possible so I can get through this Utah trip without much incident, and then Jenny calls me over because she's got something to show me. In her hands, I see an old yearbook. She points at a page and she says, "Look, there's me." I look at the page and I see 500 students all bunched up together, and I have no idea where Jenny is. She points out where she's standing amidst this sea of people, and I ask her, "Is this a picture of your entire high school?" And she says, "Entire high school? This picture is just me in the 10th grade." And I can't even begin to imagine what that high school experience must have been like. In El Salvador, my graduating grade had around 30 people in it, and that was considered a bigger than average grade for my school. From what little I know of how it works in the States, students apparently switch schools between grade school to middle school to high school, and there's also some sort of system in place where you have to take your kids to a certain school depending on the area you live in. For us, any kid could go to whatever school his parents wanted to put him into, and there was no switching around either. All the students from kindergarten up to the 12th grade attended the same school. So in my graduating class, about a third of the students had known each other since the 4th grade or something, and there were even a few that had been classmates with each other ever since they were in kindergarten, and they wound up graduating together. The moment I saw Jenny in her yearbook, lost in a crowd of her own peers, made me piece together a situation I'd find myself in frequently since moving to the States. There were times when I'd be hanging out with some dudes and there'd be a couple there, and then someone asks them how the two of them met, and then they say they're high school sweethearts, and instantly the energy in the room changes. Where before this grand revelation of how they met, we'd all been equals just hanging out, now that it's known that these two have been together since high school, they've gone up one rung in the respect ladder, and the rest of us commoners now have to hold them in a higher regard. The other women present are awing at them, and the other dudes are giving them their props like it's some miraculous achievement, and I never knew how to react, because in my experience, with only 30 kids in my grade, you average it out to 15 guys and 15 girls spending all day, every day together, and you're gonna have at least one pair of high school sweethearts coming out of there because there's not much to choose from. But it's when you see a grade with 200 plus people, and they're all funneled into little subsections depending on which one of the 20 teachers they have. The fact that Bob met Jill in the only class where their school schedules overlapped that one year, the fact that with an average of 100 other dudes to pick from, Jill had to have had at least 10 other guys that had already latched themselves onto her before her fateful meeting with Bob, all of them waiting patiently behind the friend zone barrier, hoping to be led into the promised land one day. And Bob had 100 other girls that could have struck his fancy, but he went for Jill, and Jill went for Bob, and holy shit, this is a miraculous fucking thing we're witnessing here, because they're still together to this day, and now I'm giving props and awing as hard as I can along with the rest of the dudes in the room. I went to school with 29 other kids that I saw day in and day out for years. We all went to the same classes together, and we all shared the same teachers. And I'm kinda hesitant to say that the relationship I had with my classmates felt like we were all one big family, because it sounds real cheesy and crappy, but here's a couple examples of what it was like. I showed up to the school I eventually graduated from in the 7th grade. I'd transferred from another school partly due to my unruly student behavior, but also because one of my teachers locked me and another dude in his classroom during recess one time, and he told us that there were certain things we could do for him that would get us extra credit. And it's not like he locked himself in with us or anything like that either. He locked us in his classroom and he left us by ourselves to think about his offer. I guess he expected me and the other dude would be like, well, I guess he has a point, math class would be a lot easier if we just did the things he's asking us to do. Needless to say, we broke the class windows with a desk and jumped out of there as soon as he left. And my mom promptly took me out of that school, and now here I was, one of the new kids coming into 7th grade. Most grades in El Salvador schools get maybe 3 or 4 new kids that show up every year, max. And because all the dudes in the classroom have known each other since they were 10 years old or something, the first order of business when new students show up is to tell them stories about everyone else in the class, to get them familiarized with how things work around here and what everyone's like. It's the same thing as when you go to your girlfriend's first big family gathering. You meet her dad for the first time, your girlfriend's sister tells him to tell you about what happened to Uncle Bill last summer, and then your girlfriend's dad tells you about Uncle Bill and how he went down to the lake every day for 3 months straight, determined to catch some legendary fish. And on the fateful day that he did catch it, he tried to get a selfie with it, and it slipped out of his hands and plopped back into the lake. Your girlfriend's dad starts laughing, and now that's your cue to laugh too, because he's letting you know that his family family has a sense of humor and they enjoy poking fun at themselves, so you can rest easy. He's showing you how things work around here and what everyone's like. Every single student in my new grade had a backstory that everyone was aware of, and the whole class remembered even the tiniest of details. Sometimes I'd be in class and they'd ask someone to go up to the board to solve some math problem, and while he'd be up there trying to figure it out, some other student would yell out, "Hey, remember when Miss Ramirez asked you to solve a math problem in 5th grade, and you answered it so terribly the whole class got detention for it? Don't do that this time." Or I'd see two dudes get into a fight and I'd ask someone what they're upset over, and I'd be told that it's something that happened before my time, that these two guys have been feuding ever since 3rd grade, and half the class agrees with one of the dudes and the other half thinks otherwise. Compare a person we'll call Banana Kid with another dude we'll call Sweater Guy. Banana Kid was a student I was introduced to when I first showed up for 7th grade. I was told he was late for class one time when all of them were in the 4th grade, and when he ran into the classroom, the teacher was talking to the class and she happened to say the word banana at the exact same moment when this kid tripped and fell flat on his face in front of the whole class. So from then on, if anyone in the class said banana, like if someone asked if anyone wanted his banana during lunchtime or something, there'd always be someone reminding Banana Kid, "Hey, just because he said banana, try not to trip and fall flat on your face this time, okay?" And Banana Kid would always have to laugh it off and say, "I'm not gonna fall flat on my face, I promise." Sweater Guy is someone I met in my college dorms a few years ago, and he told me that every single Christmas he spends with his family, he has to bring a sweater with him, and if he ever has to get up from the table during Christmas dinner for any reason, he's practically forced to take that sweater with him. His family reminds him all the time, "Take your sweater if you're gonna go outside," because what happened was when he was little, his whole family was having a Christmas get-together one time. He'd just gotten a sweater as a gift that night, and when everyone was sitting down having dinner, he felt a sudden urge to go outside and see the snow falling. He was in such a hurry that he left his sweater sitting on the dinner table as he rushed outside. So he runs out, and like something straight out of a cartoon, he slams the front door behind him, and all the snow on the roof of the house slides off and avalanches right on top of him. His family notices he's been gone for a while, and they find him passed out outside of the house under a ton of snow. He got sick for a couple days afterwards, but what was worse is that from then on, during every family Christmas reunion, the running joke was always that sweater incident, and they'd mess with him that maybe things would have been different if he'd put on the sweater he got as a gift just moments before. It's a harmless joke, but now here he is 10 years later in his 20s, and he has to bring a sweater with him every year. He can't get up from the dinner table without someone chiming in that he should remember to take his sweater with him, just because of some dumb thing that happened to him when he was a kid. Every year on Christmas, someone mentions that damned sweater, and he has to laugh it off and tell them, "I'm not gonna forget my sweater, guys, I promise." Just like Banana Kid had to do with my grade. So those are the things I mean when I say me and my other classmates were like one big family. We saw each other all day, every day, and stuff like what Banana Kid had to go through is more on the annoying spectrum of what it means to have a family, but we also got a lot of positives from our relationship. For one thing, we were all fiercely loyal to each other. A lot of times we'd all be hanging out during lunchtime, and one of our classmates would come running at us all sweaty and nervous, and he'd say, "Guys, I just fucked up real bad. If anyone asks you about the boys' bathroom door being set on fire, it wasn't me." And eventually the principal would sit us all down and ask if we knew who was responsible for the act of arson in the restrooms, and everyone kept their mouths shut. No one ever ratted anyone else out, even under threat of being expelled. This loyalty extended outside of our school too. Whenever me and my friends were out at some club, if a girl from our class came up to us and told us that some douchebag won't leave her alone, we'd drop whatever we were doing. Even if one of us was about to get a girl's number or something, we'd all show up and whisk our classmate away to safety. Whenever one of the guys in our grade went through a bad breakup, all he had to do was say the word, and the whole class would show up to his place, and we'd all get drunk with him and try to cheer him up. El Salvador is also a very violent country where murders and kidnappings happen every day. So whenever one of our classmates suffered a terrible loss at the hands of gang members, that person knew that come the day of his family member's funeral, there'd be 29 of his friends there to give him their support and a shoulder to cry on if he needs it. So when you take this dysfunctional family of 30 kids that have gotten drunk together, had regretful one-night stands with each other, suffered terrible losses together, and you tell them that the day of their graduation is coming up, you know it's gonna be a party for the ages. That's why I'm gonna have to tell you dudes about it next time, because I'm gonna need all the time I can get to give justice to what became one of the most epic parties I've ever been to. Thanks for watching, and tune in next time for part 2 of Andy Tells Stories, The Graduation.